It's 11:16 now, and we're back with news to you. Remembering when Donald Trump said he'd try to save the Bills, a presidential visit to Buffalo, and when a major Western New York employer announced plans to leave. It all made news this very week in decades past. Dave McKinley has our weekly walk down memory lane when those stories and more were all news to you.
10 years ago this week, when Donald Trump was the latest to come forward to say he was possibly interested in buying the Bills and keeping them in Western New York, Chad Kelly got kicked off the football team at Clemson, and a group trying to revive the once vaunted Empire State Games, an Olympic-style competition featuring athletes from all over New York, declared bankruptcy. Barack Obama was your president. Joe Biden was vice president. At a time when Russia had invaded Ukraine and food prices were hitting an all-time record high this week in 2014. 20 years ago this week, President George W. Bush was a Buffalo visitor, arriving on Air Force One before delivering a speech at Kleinhand's Music Hall, where he stumped for an extension of the Patriot Act, which expanded government surveillance powers in the aftermath of the 9/11 terror attacks.
Constitutional guarantees are in place when it comes to doing what is necessary to protect our homeland.
Some were quite unconvinced, concerned about infringement of civil liberties, including the local coordinator of the campaign for John Kerry, who'd lose the election to Bush that year, and who at the time felt trepidation about government running roughshod over people's lives and livelihoods.
We need to protect our citizens, but we can't do it while stepping on the civil liberties and rights of citizens and even businesses.
Well, at least these kids, who would now be of voting age, and even their teachers back then, were excited when the presidential motorcade passed by their school.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime to see the president.
Today, everybody will be bipartisan because our leader's here.
Out of the mouths of babes this week in 2004. 30 years ago this week.
Under count 3, murder in the second degree, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
The look of utter shock and disbelief on the face of a Buffalo woman, Lynn Dijak, after being convicted of the strangulation death of her own daughter, Crystal Lynn Gerard.
I didn't do it.
Dijak would spend 14 years in prison before her conviction was overturned. Exonerated, she was awarded $2.7 million for her wrongful imprisonment, but only survived for 7 years before dying of cancer at the age of 50. 40 years ago this week.
Western New York's factory jobs are drying up.
And the latest to go is the subject of this week's News to You pop quiz, which is what major employer, which once had 5,000 local workers, announced the final 400 of them would soon be gone 4 decades ago this week. Remember, this was back when it came to filing your taxes, you could only do so by mail, after filling out forms with pencil and pen, sometimes with the assistance of a tax preparer using an adding machine. And when the Bisons were about to embark on another season at War Memorial Stadium, where the old rock pile had a new scoreboard and nameplates for season ticket holders on the old wooden box seats. Oh, and plenty of treats in store for fans that year.
And listen to these promotions coming up in '84. 2 appearances by the San Diego Chicken. The Beach Boys will be here for a concert.
A groundbreaking ceremony was held for the expansion of the Lockport Mall, and another for the construction of the new Erie County Correctional Facility in Alden. The old one was sold to the state and now serves as the Wendy State Prison. Legions of loyal deadheads dotted the parking lot outside the Niagara Falls Convention and Civic Center to take in another concert by their heroes. And the Perry projects, which modern-day wrecking crews will soon set to demolish, still had people living in them. But the living wasn't easy this week in 1984, when it was all news to you.
Thank you, Dave. Here's the answer to this week's News to You pop quiz. The major employer that announced plans to leave Buffalo 40 years ago this week was Westinghouse. The company once employed 5,000 Western New Yorkers at its 2.5 million square foot plant on Genesee Street, which was originally built by Curtiss Wright to make airplanes in World War II. The sprawling factory building was demolished in 1999 by the NFTA, which then used the space to expand runways at the nearby airport.